My younger sister has always been known as righteous and kind. When our entire family was exiled, she accused me of hiding silver. She openly declared, "I've always been honest. How could I have a deceitful sister like you?" With what our father did, embezzling and taking bribes, do you think your actions are worthy of the people whose homes were destroyed? Thanks to her meritorious accusation, she got to ride in the prison wagon, while my parents and I walked all 3,000 li on foot. The bitter cold of the Northwest left us without money for padded clothing. My frail parents froze to death by the roadside. Later, when I tried to report a suspicious-looking Xiongnu youth, she stopped me and said, "Sister, don't blame me for being blunt, but you're too heartless. Saving a life is more virtuous than building 7 pagodas." Not long after, that very youth led a raid on the border towns, sparking a war, and my sister became a Xiongnu princess consort. I knelt and begged her to save the people inside the city. She laughed and said, "Sister, you know I only believe in death as justice. Now that I've married into the Xiongnu, the Han people are no longer my concern." My rage overwhelmed me. I died under a flurry of blades. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the moment our home was being confiscated. Imperial guards were hauling out chests from the estate. My sister stood beside me, frightened and uneasy, while the officers locked shackles onto each of us. In my past life, to protect her, I had stepped forward and admitted I'd hidden silver. I never thought she would immediately report me and righteously declare, "My sister would never do such a thing. This silver should be returned to the court, for the people." I'm so honest. How could I possibly have such a deceitful sister like you? Think of the people who lost everything because our father accepted bribes. The officer supervising us lashed me 10 times without hesitation. The whip had barbs. After 10 strikes, my back was raw and bloody. That bone-deep pain still makes me tremble when I remember it. I curled on the dusty ground, blood pooling beneath me. My parents, in tears, rushed to lift me up. One officer glanced at my sister and said, "Your father may be a corrupt official, and your sister a schemer, but you, young lady, seem to have a decent sense of duty." My sister stood tall, proud. I studied women's virtues and teachings since I was a child. Naturally, I understand how a woman should behave. Then she looked at me, frowning. "Don't blame me, sister. I know you love making profit and using tricks, but this is not the time to lie to the officials and hide silver." "Well done. I like upright women like you," said the officer, nodding in approval. "You've earned credit for your report. Get in the prison wagon." Suppressing her joy, she quickly climbed into the wagon. The other exiles began to view us with resentment. Because of her, they were searched again, and many suffered because of it. On the journey, my parents and I were constantly bullied, denied food and clothing, robbed repeatedly. Worse, as the days grew colder, a heavy snowstorm took the last of my parents' strength. They never opened their eyes again. I will never forget kneeling on the ground, begging others for just a bit of fire to warm them. No one helped. I could only watch as my loved ones grew cold and still. My mother's final words were, "Take care of your sister. She's still young. She doesn't understand." And my father, half delirious, mumbled, I'm innocent." "Yinshang, father dragged you down with him." I remembered their words. I took care of my sister and investigated the injustice behind my father's case. But war came first, and that righteous sister of mine sat among the enemy ranks, beautiful and serene. We criminals were exiled to the border to work in the mines. I walked 3,000 li through storms, wind, and snow. My delicate soles were blistered, torn again and again until calluses formed through blood and pain. My face weathered and rough, no longer the pampered daughter of a noble house. Meanwhile, my sister, unscathed in the prison wagon. While I staggered under lash wounds, she leaned against the side of the wagon and napped. When my feet bled and split, she complained that the ride was too bumpy. She might fall apart. When my parents were dying, I begged her to come down and see them one last time. She stayed wrapped in layers, refusing to step out. Tears in her eyes, she cried, "Sister, my legs are numb. I want to say goodbye too, but I truly can't move. You know I always tell the truth." I pleaded, "Can your coat warm mother for a bit? She's freezing to death." She clutched her coat tightly, sobbing, "It's not that I don't want to lend it. The guards gave me this out of pity. But if they see a convict wearing it, they'll be angry." I was speechless, left to watch my parents die like a fool. Before my parents passed, they gave me all the remaining clothes they had on their backs. I stuffed them with straw, bulky and full of holes, just to survive until we reached the borderlands. Even so, blisters broke out all over my body. My face, ears, and hands were covered in scars left by cracked and festering sores. Meanwhile, Yunine's skin remained soft, her figure slender and frail. At the quarry, she couldn't even lift a single rock. The overseer, seeing how weak she was, didn't assign her to hard labor, but gave her laundry duty instead. Initially, he wanted the two of us to be together, sisters working side by side. But Yunine, with a righteous expression, said, "We and Appos, both criminals. How can we ease our conscience by doing light work? I won't feel at peace. And I don't mean to insult my sister," she continued solemnly. "But I've always been honest and never lied. She's the eldest, pampered by our parents. She's never done heavy work. She even complains of fatigue after using an abacus. How could she possibly carry stones at the quarry? I'll do the heavy lifting. Let her do the washing." The overseer praised her for her honesty and sisterly affection. But toward me, his face darkened. He gave me a look of contempt and said, "My orders don't change. Feng Yunin washes clothes. Feng Yinchong carries stones." Before I could speak, I was sent back to the quarry. Fortunately, my body had already been tempered on the journey. I was stronger than before. Gritting my teeth, I finished my daily quota of stone hauling. Laundry had always been the servant's work at home. Yunin, delicate as ever, fell sick after only a few days. To care for her, I took over her tasks and stayed up late to find herbs. But her condition never improved, until I discovered the truth. She was secretly hiding an injured Xiongnu youth, and she had given him the herbs I had risked my life to find. He had no clear origin. The Xiongnu had always been our enemies. Worried he was a spy, I tried to report him. But Yunin stopped me, furious. "Sister, don't blame me for being blunt, but you're too cold-hearted. Whether he's Han or Xiongnu, he's still alive. Saving one life is worth more than building 7 pagodas." She even threatened her own life. If I dared report him, she would kill herself and tell our parents in the afterlife that I let her die. Left with no choice, I gave in. But the worst still came. Soon after, the Xiongnu invaded the border and plundered the region. Yunin was taken. She was the only family I had left in this world. I couldn't betray our parents' last wishes. To save her, I joined the women's army. But I never expected to find her again on the battlefield. She had become a Xiongnu princess consort. The youth she saved was none other than the Xiongnu crown prince. The two of them were tender and intimate, smiling amidst the carnage, blind to the sea of corpses around them. In that moment, I understood everything. Yunin had never been taken. She had gone willingly to the enemy. The taste of blood filled my throat. I fought my way to her side and knelt down, begging her to spare the people inside the city. She toyed with the red-gemmed gold hairpin in her temple hair and chuckled. "Sister, you know I only believe in death as justice. I've married into the Xiongnu. As a wife, I follow my husband. From now on, I have nothing to do with the Han. You said yourself, didn't you? A Han life or a Xiongnu life, all lives are the same." I screamed, hoarse. Yunin sighed, her eyes sorrowful. "Sister, you just don't understand. The Xiongnu people barely have food to eat. They die of hunger and illness every day. They need help far more than the Han. We only take a bit from the Han to save many more. As for the ones who died on the battlefield, I'll chant for them, pray for their peaceful next life." My eyes turned crimson. Rage surged in my chest. I vomited blood on the spot, gripping a broken sword, charging at the traitorous pair. The enemy soldiers raised their blades. A dozen sabers fell at once. I died on that battlefield, refusing to close my eyes even in death. Perhaps the hatred was too deep, because I was reborn again. This time, I woke up once more in the past. I opened my eyes and saw Yunin's terrified face. I said nothing, simply waited quietly for the officers to arrive. Behind them, the bailiffs marched in, rough and brutal. Yunin tugged at my sleeve. "Sister, I'm scared." I lowered my eyes, unmoving, my fingers trembling slightly. No one knew. I was barely holding myself back from strangling her on the spot. Mother stepped forward and hugged Yunin tightly, comforting her. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid." Yunin, Mother hid. Before she could finish, I cut her off sharply. "Mother, The officers are here. Mother's hands trembled, and she fell silent immediately. But Yunine didn't stop. Her innocent voice rang out. Mother hid something. Silver, was it? Seeing the officers turn their heads, she spoke louder. Mother, we're criminals now. That silver is evidence. I don't want you and father making mistake after mistake. You should turn yourself in. Mother rushed to cover her mouth, but I stepped forward and slapped her. I slapped her with all my strength, 3 times. The first was for her betrayal, for slandering our parents just to save herself, for standing by while they suffered. The second was for her disloyalty, how all the care I gave her in our past life was for nothing. The third was for her treason, colluding with the enemy, betraying our people. Even death would be too kind. Yunine let out a piercing scream. Her cheek instantly swelled red, and she began coughing violently. Blood and a tooth spat from her lips. What's with the noise? A whip cracked sharply through the air. The officer strode over, his gaze sweeping over us with chilling authority. I just heard someone mention hidden silver. Hand it over. Now. Or don't blame me for what comes next. I regretfully drew my hand back. My current body was still too frail. If it had been during my time in the army in my past life, I'd have slapped that wretch dead on the spot. Yunine, are you alright? My parents, stunned at first, immediately rushed to Yunine's side, wiping away her tears, checking her face, frantic in their worry. But Yunine, clutching her swollen face, could barely speak, her words garbled and incoherent. She wanted to report me to the officer, but father and mother held her back, gently wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth. They had no medicine, no soft silk cloth, only a coarse cotton rag, which only worsened her pain. With a few dabs, her cheek puffed up like 2 steamed buns. She couldn't say a word anymore. While my parents tended to her, I calmly stepped forward and bowed. Sir, it's a misunderstanding. My sister kept pestering us about silver thread cakes. We're criminals now. Our family's assets have already been confiscated. How could we afford something like that? She's just being childish. Please forgive her. Oh, the officer narrowed his eyes. Is that all? Then why did you hit her so hard she coughed blood? Without blinking, I replied, I have a strong hand. And, to be honest, sir, this younger sister of mine has always been headstrong. When she doesn't get what she wants, she throws tantrums, even threatens suicide. Only I, as the elder sister, can keep her in line. The officer turned to my parents. Is what she says true? My parents froze. They knew, admitting it would ruin Yunine's reputation. But denying it now might cost the entire family their lives. They hesitated no longer. Father nodded through tears. It's my fault. I spoiled her. I've always given in to her, and now she's become this. Mother wiped her eyes with her sleeve. No, don't blame yourself, husband. It's my fault too. I didn't raise Yunine properly. Yunine stared wide-eyed, stunned. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She shook her head wildly. She was the righteous one, just trying to make mother return the evidence. Why was I so cruel? Why were even our parents siding with me? Devastated, she clutched her head, unable to accept that her own family had turned on her. Her eyes now looked at me with undisguised hatred. I returned her glare with a faint smile. Yunine, this is only the beginning. The officer, who had remained skeptical, began to relax as he watched her frantic reaction. Looks like it really was a misunderstanding. Just as my parents were about to breathe a sigh of relief, a burly man suddenly shoved his way through the crowd. Sir, whether or not it's a misunderstanding, shouldn't we still search them to be sure? He was another exile, face thin like a starved monkey, smiling obsequiously, who knew how long he had been listening. He bowed low and said, Sir, they're family. If one of them hides something, wouldn't the rest help cover it up? And look, if they weren't guilty, would they have reacted like this? Poor little girl's face is swollen like a melon. Can't even speak a word of truth. The officer's eyes turned sharp again, gaze falling upon us. Yunine, shocked to be believed by someone, nodded eagerly in agreement. I nearly stepped forward and slapped her again. Yunine truly was both foolish and malicious. In my previous life, I thought she was simply naive, innocent. But I was the fool, falling for her act time and time again. Even now, knowing her true nature, I still worried that our parents might be swayed by her again. I looked toward them. Yunine's eager nod was nothing short of admitting that mother had hidden silver, completely disregarding any sense of daughterly affection. My parents couldn't understand why she would do this. When I hit her earlier, they had silently blamed me, thinking I was being too harsh, that their youngest daughter had simply made a childish mistake. But now, someone had suggested a search, and Yunine nodded without hesitation, like she was afraid the officers wouldn't discover Mother's supposed crime. In that moment, the image of the sweet, kind Yunine was shattered. Father's hand trembled and dropped to his side. He and Mother had been through everything together. No one feared for Mother's safety more than he did. Now, Yunine's behavior had chilled his heart completely. After a moment of silence, Father stepped forward and slapped Yunine hard across the face. "You unfilial girl. How dare you falsely accuse your own mother? Vile-hearted thing." He had to protect Mother. The only way was to denounce Yunine even more harshly. If I hadn't known the truth, even I, as her own sister, would have started to question my memories of her. Thud. Yunine collapsed to the ground, another tooth flying out. Mother inhaled deeply, then turned away from her. She stepped toward the officer and said calmly, "Sir, if you still don't believe us, then search me. I would never dare to hide anything. And if I truly had silver hidden, would my daughter have screamed like that? What would she gain from exposing her own mother?" Her words etched an even deeper impression. Yunine was nothing more than a stubborn, reckless girl with no understanding of loyalty or restraint. The officer nodded, seemingly convinced. Indeed, in all the prisoner transfers he'd handled, anyone hiding something would be careful. Even children knew better than to be obvious. Could Fang Yunine truly be that stupid? To expose her own mother for hiding silver? Though the officer still harbored some suspicion, he ordered his men to search Mother. Father, though inwardly anxious, maintained a calm facade, as though utterly confident in his wife's innocence. He played it off as nothing more than a fabricated tale by their youngest daughter. I watched Mother clutching her handkerchief tightly, trying to wipe the dust from her face, then the blood smeared by Yunine earlier. The stain only grew larger, darker. But as I watched, I felt my heart gradually settle. Mother hadn't hidden silver, but she had hidden something, a gold-embroidered handkerchief. She had used coarse thread to disguise the fine gold stitching. Unless someone unraveled it thread by thread, no one would notice it. Now, with the extra dirt and blood, the handkerchief looked even filthier. The searcher only gave it a glance before tossing it aside, entirely unaware. In my past life, Mother had also passed the search unscathed. But I, because I had told Yunine in advance where I had hidden the silver, was exposed. That one betrayal had caused the officer to order another full search of all prisoners, making our entire family the object of everyone's resentment. This time, Mother passed the inspection. The officer waved us off. "Enough. From now on, behave on the road. Otherwise, don't blame the whip in my hand for showing no mercy." The crisis had finally passed. My parents exchanged glances and exhaled in relief. Yunine, still lying on the ground, looked even more dazed when she heard Mother had hidden nothing. After everyone was shackled, the procession began to move. I had hoped that, this time, with no scandal dragging others into trouble, the road would be easier. But I was wrong. We were still ostracized. And the one leading the hostility was none other than that convict who had jumped out earlier, demanding Mother be searched. His name was Gao Lu. Thinking back on my previous life, I realized he might have had a hand in our family's isolation back then too. After the third time our food was stolen, I noticed a pattern. The same four strong men were always behind it. In the past, our family had offended everyone, and the moment we received food, it would be snatched away. Now, even without incident, those same four men, strangers to us, targeted only our family. Every convict had limited rations. A single bowl of thin gruel per day. If it wasn't enough, you had to forage wild vegetables to survive. That gruel, so worthless the Fong family's servants wouldn't touch it in the past, was now our lifeline. And bitter as they were, wild greens were worse. After 3 days of eating nothing but foraged weeds, Yunine couldn't take it anymore. Clutching her bowl, she wept. "Mother, I want rice." She had suffered, just like I had in my past life. Her soft feet were now blistered, torn open again and again. She no longer whined out how bumpy the wagon ride was. She simply walked, blankly, like the rest of us. But the road ahead was still long. This was only the beginning. My parents hardened their hearts. They didn't help her up when she fell, but waited until she pulled herself to her feet. Once, When she rested too long, the officer whipped her several times. In pain, she stopped dawdling, scrambling back into line, silent. Lately, since she'd behaved better, Mother's heart softened. She passed her own wild greens to Yunine. Eat more, Yunine. You'll need your strength. Tomorrow I'll get up early and queue for the rice. Yunine ate quietly. After a while, she suddenly looked at Mother, eyes filled with hope. Mother, you really didn't hide any silver. Mother's grip on the bowl tightened. Her smile faded. Why are you saying that now? The officer already searched me. I had nothing. No, Yunine muttered, her voice turning cold. You must have hidden it. You're always careful, Mother. If you wanted to hide something, no one would ever find it. Why did you lie to me? Why did you let Father and Sister hit me? She was going to tell me. Yunine suddenly cried, clinging to the last thread of her justification. Mother was going to tell me where the silver was, but Sister cut her off. If not for you, I would have. You would have what? I cut in sharply, my voice like a blade. Reported her successfully. Gained the officer's favor. My interruption froze her mid-sentence. Did you even consider what would have happened to Mother? I continued, every word colder than the last. That officer's whip is as thick as your arm. If it had landed on her, how many lashes do you think she could survive at her age? Did you want her to die? Yunine flinched as if struck again. I didn't mean it like that. She stammered, panicked. Sensing my expression turning darker, she immediately switched tactics. Her lips trembled, and tears poured freely down her face. Sister, I'm sorry. You misunderstood me. I didn't mean any harm. I've always been blunt, you know that. I only said what was on my mind. And nothing happened to Mother anyway, right? But I really am starving. She dropped to her knees before Mother, sobbing. Mother, please, buy something, anything. I know you have silver hidden. I can't keep eating bitter weeds. I can't even lift my legs anymore. You don't want to see me beaten to death by the officers, do you? Mother opened her mouth, but no words came. A suffocating helplessness washed over her. Worse than when the Fong family's estate had been confiscated, worse than the day the whole family was sentenced to exile, was this moment, her youngest daughter, kneeling, begging, accusing her. Then Father returned, arms full of firewood. The moment he saw his wife and daughter in a standoff, he instantly understood everything. Sinful child, he roared. How did I raise such a selfish daughter? Without hesitation, he grabbed the thickest stick from his pile and struck Yunine with full force. This is your mother, the woman who gave birth to you, raised you. If I'd known you and Apos, grow up to kneel and extort her like this, I would have strangled you in the cradle myself. After the beating, Yunine no longer caused a scene, but neither did she show any warmth to our parents again. That night, I saw her slip away from the fire in silence. I followed her through the darkness, and watched as she met in secret with Gao Lu. His voice was low. Did your mother tell you where the silver is? No, Yunine whispered, pleading, but I swear, I'll get it out of her tomorrow. Please, Gao Ji, just give me a bowl of rice. So that's what this is about. Gao Lu didn't just want silver. If it were only greed, he would have waited and robbed us on the spot. No, this was orchestrated. He had intentionally called for Mother to be searched. He'd pointed all suspicion toward us. I crouched quietly behind the tall grass, listening, heart churning. What is Gao Lu's real objective? Why is he targeting our family? A creeping dread settled in my chest. My instincts screamed, if I didn't get to the bottom of this, if I didn't uncover the truth behind this scheme, Father and Mother would die again. Just like last time. Die? And then, it struck me. In my past life, after my parents died, I drifted through exile barely alive. I fought like a beast to steal food, thinking I survived through sheer will. But looking back, I realized something strange. Once my parents were gone, the people who had isolated and bullied us suddenly lost interest. There had been many deaths during that bitter winter. Several people vanished from the ranks of exiles without a word. Gao Lu was one of them. It was because of his early aggression that I remembered his face so clearly. And now, comparing it to my past memories, I finally recognized him as one of those who had stolen food from me. But if he died of the cold, how could that be? No, he hadn't died. He'd disappeared. Because his mission was complete. Someone had sent him. Mother was only a link in a greater chain. Gao Lu was never acting alone. Their true goal wasn't silver. It was Father. They wanted Father to die during exile. That's why Gao Lu and his crew had quietly withdrawn after my parents perished. I clenched my fists. A cold resolve hardened in my chest. This time, I will not let them succeed. I will protect my family, and I will find whoever is pulling the strings behind Gao Lu. Back by the fire, Gao Lu's voice turned sly. I gave you 3 days. You failed. If you still want to eat, you'll have to trade something else. Yunin was silent for a long time. Then, with her stomach twisting in pain, she finally murmured, Gaoji, if you give me a bowl of rice, I'll do whatever you say. I returned to the camp, my hands icy cold despite the fire. The night wind howled, and I threw 2 more logs into the flames. I stared into the crackling light, thoughts swirling dark and deep, so focused that I didn't even realize Father had opened his eyes. Yinchong, where's your sister? He asked, voice low and worn. I turned to him in surprise. Father, you're not asleep. He exhaled a long breath. There are no men in our household. At night, your mother and I take turns keeping watch. You and Yunin are young and beautiful. There are many men among these exiles. We must stay vigilant. My throat tightened. So even in moments I never saw, Father and Mother were quietly protecting us. She want to meet Gao Lu, I answered honestly. Father sat up, listening. Gao Lu wants her to make Mother hand over silver. The men who attacked us today, they're working under him. Father, they're not after silver, they're after us. They want you dead. Father's hand clenched tightly, joints cracking. After a long pause, he murmured, this is my fault. If I die, maybe they'll let the rest of you live. My head shot up. Why do you think you have to die? What secret are you hiding? Father's eyes darkened. For the first time, he radiated killing intent. I knew what kind of person my father was. Throughout his career as an official, he was always meticulous and principled. He rarely accepted gifts, and when he did, only when it was impossible to refuse, he would always return something of equal value. He had no love for luxury. Frugal in daily life. Even the tea he drank was the tin-talicati variety. More than anyone, I knew, those charges of bribery and corruption were completely baseless. The silver confiscated from our estate wasn't bribe money. It was what my mother and I had scraped together through years of running a shop. Every tael, every copper, was earned with late nights and tired hands. So many nights spent hunched over the abacus, so tired our hands could no longer grip it properly. It had taken us years to buy a modest home in the capital, and in a blink, the Fong family was raided. The entire family exiled. But even then, the hand behind the curtain didn't stop. They weren't just trying to ruin us. They wanted Father dead. He pressed his lips together, refusing to speak. I grabbed his hand tightly, my voice firm. Father, if your death is the only way to save us, then I'd rather die too. I know you are innocent. The ones who framed you know it even better than we do. That's why they want you dead. They're afraid of what you know. Father's eyes welled with tears. But I want you all to live. With Gao Lu and his men around, the road ahead won't get any easier. I know, and I have a way to deal with them, I said. Trust me, protecting my parents, that is the reason I was given a second life. Then I made a request. If I can take care of Gao Lu's group, then tell me the truth. Whatever secret you've been hiding. You raised me like a son. You know what I'm capable of. Let me help you, Father. He hesitated, but after my repeated pleading, he finally nodded in agreement. Taking care of Gao Lu and his thugs wasn't hard. I had my military experience from my past life. After a bit of practice, I could knock down sparrows with stones like it was nothing. I also had some knowledge of medicine. Along the way, I secretly collected useful herbs. Then I prepared a stew, using the sparrow meat and a mix of mild purgative herbs. Soon, the smell of meat spread through the air. We'd been traveling for 2 months. Many hadn't tasted meat in weeks. The sound of people swallowing their saliva echoed all around. Yunin squatted beside the clay pot, drooling. Before it was even fully cooked, she reached in to try and scoop a piece. I shot her a look. Mother and Father haven't eaten yet. What's your rush? She gave an awkward smile and placed the meat back. Sister, if you knew how to catch birds, why didn't you do it earlier? She was bitter. Last night, she had traded herself to that man for a bowl of thin gruel. The shame made her sick, and that bitterness twisted her words. You hid it on purpose, didn't you? Even if you hate me, at least give something to Mother and Father. Oh, now you remember them. I said coldly. Last night, when you ate alone, did you think of them? I made no effort to spare her. When she returned last night with messy clothes and guilty eyes, even if I hadn't seen it myself, our parents, with all their life experience, surely knew what she'd done. In her last life, she sold herself to the Xiongnu prince for status. Now, she'd done it for a single bowl of rice. Hearing my words, Yunin's face turned pale. Her hatred toward me only deepened, but for the sake of that pot of meat, she said nothing. But she didn't get to eat it. Before the stew even finished cooking, Gao Lu and his men snatched it away. The moment they got their hands on it, they devoured it like wild dogs. They hadn't tasted meat in weeks either. Every one of them ate like they were starving. Father gave me a long, thoughtful look. I nodded slightly. Then, with perfect coordination, he stood up and feigned outrage, charging forward to argue with them. Mother and I joined in. What I hadn't expected was Yunin, like someone possessed, lunging at Gao Lu's bowl to snatch back a piece of meat. Gao Lu shoved her to the ground, but she scrambled back up and started shrieking like a market hag, cursing him up and down. Naturally, the commotion drew the officer's attention. But by the time he arrived, Gao Lu's group had finished the stew and even licked the bottom of the bowl clean. Father used the moment of distraction to accidentally break the pot, destroying all evidence. The officer gave us a cold warning and left, none the wiser. That night, after Yunin cried herself to sleep, Father leaned close and whispered to me, "That was too risky. If they all die, everyone will know the meat was poisoned." "They won't die," I reassured him. "I didn't use poison, only laxatives. With how long they've been eating nothing but bitter greens, suddenly eating meat will make the diarrhea seem natural. No one would suspect me, but I knew what the weather would bring. In the coming days, the temperature would drop sharply, and diarrhea in freezing weather. Even the strongest body wouldn't survive." As expected, the cold came quickly. Within 2 days, Gao Lu's group fell ill with chills and fever. To avoid spreading the sickness, the officer ordered them isolated. On the exile road, no one wanted to be near the sick. After days of uncontrollable diarrhea, they stank so terribly that even the food distributors chased them away with pinched noses. No one gave them food or water. Then, one snowy night, they all froze to death. Heaven's will turns. What my family had suffered in silence, those beasts now tasted in full. The rage and helplessness that had built in me for so long finally found its release. Because several had frozen to death, the officer in charge finally ordered the purchase of padded coats for the prisoners. The cold had become unbearable. If more convicts died from the weather, he would be held responsible by his superiors. Thanks to my efforts, this distribution came several days earlier than in my past life. I dug out the hidden silver sewn into the soles of my shoes and discreetly handed it to the petty official responsible for procurement, an unspoken transaction known well among convicts like us. No one would report it. This time, without Gao Lu's group, no one tried to steal our clothes. At last, our entire family safely reached the borderlands. Just like in the past, we were assigned to the quarry for hard labor. But this time, Yunin was just as grimy as the rest of us. Her face, ears, and hands were covered in blister scars. Her once delicate fingers were now rough and calloused. Supervisor La didn't spare her even a glance. Everyone had the same weather-worn, hollow look. Yunin no longer had a youthful glow or tender figure to draw sympathy. And without beauty, there was no mercy. Around her, others lifted rocks twice their size, skin stretched over bone, faces gaunt and lifeless. The sight alone terrified her. Realizing that she would spend the rest of her life carrying stones, despair swallowed her whole. She bit her lip, and as the supervisor prepared to leave, she abandoned all pride and chased after him. "Sir, please wait," Yunin called out in her sweet, pitiful voice. "I've always been sincere and straightforward. I greatly admire your strength and presence. May I stay by your side as your maid? Please grant me this honor." Despite her slightly marred looks, she was still a girl in her prime, and few men would turn down a young woman volunteering to serve. Supervisor La was naturally pleased. "Yunin, don't go," Mother called out in pain. With no guards nearby to silence her this time, she finally managed to speak. She had hidden gold. But Yunin didn't stay to hear it. She threw them a cold, dismissive glance. "You can all carry rocks for the rest of your lives. I'm going to enjoy mine." Mother staggered. Her words caught in her throat as she watched her daughter walk away, the tears finally overflowing. Father cried out bitterly. What misfortune, what disgrace to this family. Mother pulled off her handkerchief and unwound it. Hidden within was a single strand of gold thread. She melted it into a smooth, round golden bead. In my past life, during my time with the Women's Army, I had met many, including Madame Wu, the cook supervisor. Madame Wu was bold and straightforward, always easy to talk to. But her youngest son had been seriously ill. In my past life, her husband and eldest son had died on the battlefield, and the Xiongnu later broke into her home and slaughtered her remaining child. The grief nearly destroyed her. She picked up a spear and joined the army herself. I used the gold bead to purchase medicine, then delivered it to Madame Wu. Medicines in the northern frontier were more precious than jade. She didn't ask where I had obtained it. She simply received it like a lifeline from heaven. In return, Madame Wu went out of her way to help us. She pleaded with Supervisor Law to give my parents new duties, mother to help in the kitchens, and father to chop firewood. As for me, I found a other way. Using my connections, I was reassigned to laundry duty in the supply room. A few days later, Yunin somehow hard out my new job and came storming over to mock me. She sneered, then dumped a pile of over 100 filthy garments at my feet. Don't think I don't know how you got this cushy job, she spat. You think I don't recognize that arrogant look you always had, looking down on everyone. She laughed. Well, look at you now, bowing your head just like the rest of us. Selling yourself too. But I won't let you stay comfortable for long. Still holding her grudge over the slaps I'd given her, she doubled down with no shame. Wash every single one of these clean. I'll come back in 2 days. If you haven't, I'll tell the supervisor you've been slacking and get you sent back to the quarry. Are you done talking? I replied calmly, meeting her eyes. Before she could react, slap. I struck her again. You can go report me right now if you'd like, I said coldly. But this job, Madame Law arranged it for me herself. You're nothing but a maid. Not even a concubine. Do you think Supervisor Law would risk upsetting his own wife for you? If you still don't understand your place, I'll help you wake up. Yunin, drunk on her fleeting sense of superiority, had become reckless again. When reason failed, the only language she responded to was pain. She shrieked, clutching her cheek. She turned and fled, but not before throwing one last line over her shoulder. Just you wait. I'll become the supervisor's legal wife. And when I do, you won't have a single peaceful day. Of course, even as a former noble lady, Yunin couldn't bear the thought of being anyone's concubine. Even becoming the official wife of a mere supervisor felt beneath her. She had intended to use Supervisor Law as a stepping stone, restore her looks, then latch onto someone truly powerful. A general, ideally. But now, after being provoked by me, all her carefully calculated ambition crumbled into impulsive rage. What she didn't know was that the women on this frontier weren't the soft-spoken noble ladies from the capital. They weren't interested in slow-burning inner courtyard games. They would eat her alive. And, as expected, not long after, word spread. Supervisor LA's wife had punished a maid who tried to seduce her by breaking her leg. That maid was Fong Yunin. In the end, it was only after Supervisor Law begged on his knees that Yunin was taken in as a concubine. But I had no interest in Yunin's affairs anymore, because the person I had long awaited had finally appeared. There, curled in a pile of straw, was the wounded Xiongnu youth. Slowly, I walked toward him. Yes, my true goal in securing a position in the supply room was to wait for this Xiongnu prince. Yesterday, when I noticed the city's sentries were slightly more alert, I'd purposely left the storeroom window ajar. And today, I found him hiding among the straw. Despite his injuries, he was alert. At the first sound, he sprang up and pressed a dagger to my throat. I feigned fear and said softly, "Don't be afraid. I'm not your enemy. I saw your wounds. I just want to help bandage you." Of course I wanted to kill him. I wanted to avenge the soldiers who had died in my past life. But now wasn't the time. So I played the role of the helpful, innocent girl. He didn't believe me. His voice was sharp. "Humph, I'm Xiongnu, and you want to help me." I met his eyes and let him see my sincerity. Every life is worth saving, whether Han or Xiongnu. Buddha says, saving a single life is greater than building 7 pagodas. I copied my sister's soft voice and gentle expressions. In the eyes of a Xiongnu man, Han women were small, delicate, and harmless. And besides, they believed in Buddha too. He gradually lowered the knife. Over the next few days, I continued bringing him medicine. At first, he remained suspicious, refused the herbs outright. So I played the part of the love-struck girl. I even tested the medicine in front of him, pretending I feared he might die. Eventually, he believed me, and even revealed his true identity. He promised he would take me away from this place, to Xiongnu territory, where I would live in wealth and glory by his side. Inside, I wanted to rip his heart out, but outwardly, I smiled sweetly and agreed. On the third day, I drugged both his medicine and food. Not long after, he clutched his head and staggered, glaring at me. "You tricked me. I'll kill you." He lunged and wrapped his hands around my neck. But I had hidden a dagger in my sleeve. With one clean motion, I plunged it into his chest. As his body hit the ground, I searched his robes until I found a letter sewn into the lining. This letter contained the very evidence I needed to clear my father's name. After dealing with Gao Lu's group, father had kept his promise and told me the truth. He had overheard a secret conversation between the second prince and the Minister of Finance. They had embezzled military funds. And this letter explicitly detailed how the second prince had colluded with the Xiongnu, ordering them to assassinate the crown prince guarding the frontier. To silence my father, the second prince framed him, then had him exiled and intended to kill him en route. Now it all made sense. In my past life, military supplies at the border had inexplicably run short. No reinforcements came. And after the crown prince's death, the Xiongnu launched their full invasion. All for the throne. So many innocent lives, discarded like scraps. I wouldn't let history repeat itself. I wouldn't let Madame Wu suffer the agony of losing her husband and son again. I carried the unconscious Xiongnu prince straight to the military camp and requested an audience with the crown prince. Upon reading the letter, his face turned pale. He was a brilliant general, and more than that, a good man, beloved by the people. Armed with the truth, he countered the second prince's treachery. And when the second prince launched his coup, the crown prince intercepted him just in time, saving the emperor. Not long after, he was crowned as the new emperor. He reinvestigated my father's case and officially cleared his name. At last, the Fong family was vindicated. We returned to the capital, no longer criminals. On the day of our return, Yunin limped out from the shadows, half crazed, dragging her broken leg. "Father, mother, sister, don't leave me behind. Take me with you. I don't want to stay here any longer. I'd rather die." I pried her trembling hands from my clothes and smiled coldly. "Yunin, don't blame me for being blunt, but you're already married. A woman must follow her husband. The Fong family has nothing to do with you anymore." "No, no," she screamed. "I have Fong blood in my veins. You can't treat me like this." "Oh, so you do know where your blood comes from. Then how could you say such heartless things in the past?" Our parents had long given up on her. They entrusted the final decision to me. I, of course, refused to bring her back. But I also knew they still felt pain for her, so I gently consoled them. Yunin's temperament needs discipline. If she returns to the capital, she'll just cause more trouble. I've left a small sum with Madame La. She won't starve. But she'll have no silks or jewels. And knowing we're living well in the capital will be punishment enough. I want her to live. To truly live. So that every moment of this miserable life repays the sins she committed in the last. After returning to the capital, I used the reward from the new emperor to buy a shop in the busiest street, and a large estate outside the city. From that day on, our life only soared higher with each wave. The end.